Good evening. I now call to order this meeting of May 17th. Heidi, may we please have the roll call?
Councilmember Guillen. Councilmember Lemons. Councilmember Olmos.
Here.
Vice Mayor Aguayo.
Here.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Here, thank you. Will the city manager please provide the city council with updates on the city council public comments from the last city council meeting, sir?
We have no updates from the last council meeting.
Thank you. Now, this is a time that members of the public may comment on items within the jurisdiction of the city that are not on the agenda. Mr. City Mayor, are there any public comments? Speaker card, sir.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do have one from Mr. Alejandro Yanez. He has general comments. Mr. Yanez?
Good afternoon. Is there a clock started, or can I just go ad lib? I don't see the council. Oh, wow, we got a good new face. Nice to see a new face here. Change the pace now, so I can start now? All right. Good afternoon. I'm no stranger to come to these meetings. I'd like to bring up a couple things before my time runs out. I'd like to ask for an extension, being that nobody shows up to these meetings and speaks anymore. It goes to show that people are losing our confidence, our interest in our city leaders, because you're just out of touch. You're out of touch with the residents. First thing I would like to bring up is, why can't we have access to these monitors here so we could do a PDF file? I'd like to do a PDF file on the same survey style that our discriminating survey was done for handball. You know, they were able to provide, you know, the police officers, and you were able to provide all kinds of history and put them up on the screen so the residents could see them. But the residents that live here, we can't access that. And I'd like to know why not. I'd like to be able to provide our own PDF so I could show the discrimination and the racism that's gone on in the city. Number two, from the survey, one council member brought up that she's lived here all her life and that she's never known anybody to play handball, and that during her whole time, she doesn't know anybody that would ever bring that up. But yet our courts were up for more than 50 years. And I'd like to bring up the fact that aside from our gender differences, that we're both men and women, right? I never recall seeing anybody at our handball courts. Not you, not anybody at our handball courts. So why is it that your life was so different than my life growing up here in the city of Paramount? One, you didn't grow to the public schools like I did. You were in a private Catholic school. So how is it that your life could interchange with my life when I was outside in the recreation departments playing in this city? I learned how to play handball in this city. I've never been to prison. I've never gone to jail. I've never been known as a gang member in this city. I learned how to play handball in this city. This city taught me how to play handball. I'd like for you to recognize that. That's the reason why you're so different, and you did not know anybody growing up that played handball or basketball or baseball or anything else. Let me see here. Being that you don't have access to these screens, we can't equally share the information, just like your staff is able to provide that for the residents. We can't do the same, although council's told us verbally that we're the boss of the council, but yet we can't get access to these screens. I'd like to be able to show how I feel I'm discriminated against. I'd like to show that the survey that was done, there was no pictures above the bathroom door to say, use that bathroom, el baño está para allá, pueden usar ese. Why isn't that? Why wasn't that involved in the survey? Because the person who did it just discriminated against us the whole time. And I've been saying that for year after year, like I was explaining to this gentleman. Year after year, I've been coming to these meetings and telling you guys we've been discriminated against. You ran our license plates, right? In the survey, the license plate said, because they ran license plates, it was
Mr. Yanez, your 3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you.
No, but the people that were living here aren't from the residents that were playing. I have a van outside that has Indiana plates.
Time's up, sir.
Oh, I'm cut off. Is somebody else next? Nobody else is next. There's half an hour. There's nobody else going to come up here and talk. See what I mean? That's my point.
Do we have any more?
No, Madam Mayor, we don't.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar. May I have a motion and a second for approval for the consent calendar?
So moved, Lemons.
Second, almost.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Aguayo,
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Yes. Next, we'll move on to new business. Mr. City Manager, may we have a staff report on the city entry and civic center monument signs?
Yes, Madam Mayor. A few years ago, we embarked on an effort to change out the old monument signs that are in the medians at the entrances to our city. The old monument signs made of bouquet candy and rock were a style from the 1980s. So about 5 years ago, the City Council approved a design of signage that is more mid-century modern style. And over the last 5 years, we've phased out the old signs and installed the new ones. We're happy to report we have one boulevard remaining to replace the old signs with the new ones. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, to tell you which boulevard that is and the cost to do this. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you know, and as John indicated, over the past several years, the city has been upgrading its existing signage citywide to reflect the improvements to the downtown area completed in 2017. As part of those improvements, new wayfinding signage as well as city entry monument signs were introduced. Can you move the next slide, please? Thank you. Since 2017, we've completed the installation of new signage for Paramount Boulevard, Alondra Boulevard, Rosecrans Avenue, and one on the north entry point of Garfield Avenue. Staff received quotes from Bravo Sign and Design, Inc. for the replacement of various signage throughout the city. This will complete our city entry monument sign replacement project with 2 monument signs to be installed on Somerset Boulevard, east and west, and one at the southern entry point of the city on Garfield Avenue. This project also includes the replacement of the downtown vertical sign, which was recently hit and damaged due to a traffic collision and a sign near City Hall. According to the city's adopted purchasing policy, purchases of equipment in excess of $25,000 need to be approved by the City Council. The manufacture and installation of the vertical signs is a sole source product that must match the newly installed signage, and based on the city's adopted purchasing policy, does not require competitive bidding. Our final budget numbers will be adjusted during the final budget process to reflect the additional signage required for this project. And with that, it is recommended that the City Council authorize the purchase and installation of monument signs from Bravo Sign and Design in the amount of $140,967.88. That concludes my report, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the report, Adriana. Do my colleagues have any comments?
I'll move the item.
May I have a motion and a second
Second.
to approve, please, for the purchase of the signs? The first,
I moved. Second.
okay. Heidi, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Councilmember or Vice Mayor Aguayo,
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Yes. And on to item 4. Mr. City Manager, may we have a staff report regarding the driveway expansion pilot program, sir?
Madam Mayor, before you begin, I just need to let you know that I have to recuse myself from any discussion because the pilot program would be a conflict of interest because it's within so many feet of my home. Okay, so I will not be participating in this item.
Yes, ma'am. That's been noted.
Okay, Madam Mayor. We all know that parking is a major concern for almost all of our neighborhoods throughout town. In response to this demand, the City Council listened to the community and directed staff to form a parking subcommittee that would study all the different needs and solutions to parking in our various neighborhoods throughout town. And the reason for this is that the council really felt that every neighborhood has different problems that require different solutions. In other words, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to solving the parking problem in our town. Such is the case with a certain neighborhood in our northwest end of town, and we recently held a parking subcommittee meeting in this neighborhood, and one of the solutions we reviewed with the subcommittee was a driveway expansion program. So our plan is to launch a pilot program in this area of town to see how it works. So with that is our assistant planning director with us, is our assistant planning director, Mr. John King, to go over which neighborhood in town and also the details of the program. Mr. King?
Thank you, John. Excuse me. Thank you, John, and thank you, Mayor Claire Stallings. So, as John mentioned, this all has to do with parking. So, obviously, it's a huge issue throughout California, Southern California, Paramount. It has been getting worse, and we're trying to find solutions. The parking shortage has had the most direct impact on Paramount residents. It's been going on for years, but it has been exacerbated by COVID-19 for a number of reasons. More people are working from home. More employers are allowing their employees to work from home. There are more home-based entrepreneurs, so some folks have moved on from working for a boss somewhere and have taken on their own life and based at their home office. And there, as you know, that we have some reports of a lot of, or more than ever, some folks are retiring at a particularly early age or making the choice not to return to the workplace. For personal reasons, often related to COVID. Then we have housing affordability and availability. The prices are out of control, and in the old days, actually not so long ago, children or young adults would eventually would move out in their 20s, and that's for more and more households that's just not possible. It's too expensive. So you have we have drivers, we have more folks living with us. We're not giving up our cars. It's just a fact. In Los Angeles, we drive long distances to get to our jobs, and so more cars. And then on top of that, we have the state mandating that cities approve ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So people are giving up their garages, converting them to more homes. So more people are living there, taking away parking spaces. So we have this parking committee that we're having to go to different neighborhoods and find some solutions. And some are, you could divide them into two categories: demand-based and supply-based. So demand, reducing the need for cars. It's a great goal. We hear some young folks are delaying car purchases for different reasons, but it's not feasible for most households. We still, even if we're we're building up our downtown, encouraging pedestrian activity. It's nice to walk around. Fact is, we still own cars. We still have to get somewhere. So we turn to supply-based solutions, where different places to park those cars. And one thought is to have extra driveway space. We may have a larger front yard and or side yard, and there's maybe a more opportunity to get the cars off the street and onto the private properties. We thought that this idea came from various sources, and staff thought that it was a great idea to pitch to the community-wide parking committee. In February, it was tailored to this neighborhood, a defined neighborhood east of Garfield Avenue and south of the Century Freeway. This consists of homes that were built in the 1940s, and as we know, in those days, you may have had one or two drivers at a home in most cases, and as I mentioned, new drivers would grow up and move out pretty quickly. So there was not a need for large driveways. And if you drive through the neighborhood, you could see that there are a lot of driveways with a width of just one car, or maybe one or two kind of squeezed in very tightly. Less parking was needed 80 years ago. You can see here it was called the Happy Homes Tract in those days. Happy Street is in there. So this really is the ideal neighborhood to test this type of program. It's not, the properties are not too narrow. They're typically about 60 feet wide, and they have those narrow driveways still. Some properties. So here's the area. This is a map outlined in red. You can see Garfield running north and south, and so this area is just to the east of that. It's zoned. So in terms of city zoning, R1 zone, single family residential, and with ADUs, a handful have ADUs at this point or are in construction. There are a total of 203 properties. Out of those 203, 202 have a house on them. And there's one that just cannot have a house. It's at the very northwest corner where it's just too small, just a legacy of the freeway construction. Population, we don't know precisely how many people live here. You know, that changes, but you could say about 705 people live there, is our guess. So here are some photos. So these are photos from this neighborhood. And you can see at the top, there's a driveway. Actually, in both cases, it's only wide enough for one car to fit. There's not enough space to go side by side without on the bottom, unless they parked on the lawn. So that's the idea. This is a perfect opportunity to encourage, to give incentives to the residents to widen, to have side-by-side parking. So with this program, we did want to come up with some criteria. So we thought you want to have a maximum width. Most folks would not want the entire neighborhood to be completely concreted in the front yard. You do want some landscaping, and a number of reasons for that, for aesthetics, property values. You know, there's more value if you have nice landscaping. Have a tree to, you know, there's a freeway nearby, so trees are nice for absorbing the dust from the freeway. Capturing water, so number of reasons to still have landscaping. So there is that balance. We think a lot about sustainability as a city, to find that balance between more parking and still being a sustainable city. So we like to begin the application process. And the way this would work is applicants who widen their driveway at their own cost, they do it on their own or hire a contractor, they would be reimbursed by amount of $3,000 was proposed. So the guidelines we've come up with is, although I don't think there are actually any properties that are less than 40 feet, we put this here looking ahead. So this is would be kind of more or less on the books if we expand this to other neighborhoods. If it's a 40-foot wide or less property, then the driveway would be no more than 16 feet wide. And then for properties that are 40 to 60 feet, they could have a driveway up to 20 feet wide. So if you think about it, a car parking space is usually 10 feet wide, so 20 is perfect for two. And properties with that are a little wider, so more than 60 feet, we can consider up to 30 feet, 30-foot width for a driveway. And then for maintaining a little side landscaped area, expanded driveways would generally look to, their goal is to keep a 5-foot side landscaped area for landscape planters for the reasons I mentioned. You know, with some exceptions. One here is driveways on properties less than 45 feet in width to go down to 2 feet. Although we are willing to work with property owners. These are guidelines. These are not these will guide us, but you never know in the real world what can come up. So we have to have some flexibility. We don't want adjacent properties like side-by-side driveways to have one long driveway, so we want it to be broken up by landscaping, and that's a number of reasons for that. We would want the application to be signed by all property owners. We don't have, say there's 2 owners, one wants it, one doesn't. We want agreement before the city having a stake in it. And we would want a drawing, so a property owner comes into the planning department and shows us what they want to do, and a planner would work with them to help measure and the existing driveway and where they want to go, how wide they want it to be. So work would begin after planning department authorization, and the director or designee may require replacement landscaping, like a tree, to mitigate the loss of some of that green space. And then all work would have to be done in a broom clean condition, professionally done, and all other for all projects, all other rules would have to be applicable. So here's another example in the neighborhood. You could see it's another semi-narrow driveway. In this example, there's no garage. It's been converted to living space many years ago. Then the next slide will just show you what we're looking at. So to widen it, you kind of ignore the planter, the potted planter in the middle, so that would go. But it would, you can see this would be enough space for 2 vehicles. And just kind of go back and forth. On the side, the idea is to green that up, so have a little green space in between the properties. And now this is the private property, so do want to keep in mind that we want to kind of keep this simple, and at this point not extend this to the driveway approach, which is the public area, the kind of ramp between the sidewalk and the street. At this point, we're not looking to assist with widening the driveway approaches because that would take away street parking by doing that.
But in that case, I do want to add if there is a small, smidgen of the apron, our idea is to be flexible with the property owner. We wouldn't want the property owner to take away 10 or 12 feet to match the driveway. But if we're talking, 1 foot or so, 12 inches or so, just so they don't have to keep jumping the curb to get onto the driveway, we would work with them. But we definitely would not want to go 10 or 12 feet wide to match the actual driveway width.
And that is a good point. And with that, we would coordinate with the Public Works Department. So fiscal impact, there is a cost. We're proposing, actually it is already in the budget for this year, $30,000, which would accommodate 10 projects at $3,000 each. We're getting to the end of this fiscal year, so good chance most of this would be postponed to the next year. And upon review, we'll take a look, build on the successes, kind of modify as needed, and we could reallocate any extra funds to either another neighborhood or fine tune it or expand. I don't know about citywide, but we could take a look at that. And that's really it. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. King. Do my colleagues have any comments?
I do, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple. I think this is a great idea. I'm so glad you guys are bringing this. I mean, it's probably been a lot of discussion about parking, but how long is the pilot program for? How long will it last?
Well, as of now, it's on the books for the fiscal year, so I imagine it would be continuing through the length of next year.
Or until the funds run out?
Until
It's
the funds
whatever.
run out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then our thought is to bring it back to the parking committee for some fine tuning. That's a good forum there to kind of to work on the details, and then possibly bring it back for another neighborhood.
Okay, and just to clarify for the residents that are watching, if they want to do this today without this program, they could still do that to their driveway and their properties, right? I've gotten a lot of calls lately about expanding, and I think I called John King about just like people had questions about what the process was of expanding their driveways. So they call you guys, go through the permit process, right? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Occasionally we do get those kind of inquiries,
Okay.
and planning looks at it, Public Works looks at them when they're
Okay.
involving the street.
Okay, perfect. But they could still do it, regardless of the pilot program. They could still do it. Okay.
That is right.
So in other words, they wouldn't qualify for the $3,000 if they're not in the pilot program, correct, sir?
I would say so. I mean,
It depends.
we are a little flexible. I mean, if someone, I just started, and you talked to me last week.
Yes.
I'm just kind of being hypothetical. Yeah, we'd say, well, here's the application, fill it out, and that'd be fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that
Yes, sir.
clarification. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. But we're looking for the grants to be just in this area
That area.
to see if it works, and then
And
see
then
if- right.
hopefully go
Mhm.
into another neighborhood.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you. This is a report that's received and filed. Mr. City Manager, may we have a staff report regarding the agreement for the Progress Park and fresco dining design service, sir?
Yes, we can, Madam Mayor. This next item here before you involves a contract for design services for 2 projects that have already been budgeted. The first is for the exterior renovation at Progress Park, and the second is for possibly permanent patios at some potential restaurants in town. As you know, the temporary patios we've allowed at restaurants during the pandemic as part of our alfresco dining have come to an end. And as we've explained to the city council, there's a potential for some of the restaurants to actually turn these patios from temporary into permanent. But please note the restaurants that are listed in the attachment to the staff report are there for purposes of getting a cost estimate and are definitely not the final ones. In other words, some of the sites you see listed that may not work for a permanent patio. Once we get into more detailed evaluation, we'll be able to determine that. So with that, this is going to be a tag team approach between 2 of our department heads. It'll be first off our Community Services Director, David Johnson, who will talk about the Progress Park exterior renovation, and then our Planning Director, John Carver, who will talk you through the alfresco dining patios. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson first, Dave.
Thank you, John, Mayor and council members. So the Progress Plaza exterior design, this is something that we actually brought to you originally in November to provide those design services. We held off knowing that there was going to be maybe some more work that we would want to involve Studio 111. So right now it is, it's a FY22 allocation for the design work of $25,000. We are anticipating obviously moving that over to FY23 carryover CIP budget. This is just a kind of a review. What we're planning here is just reimagining the exterior spaces. They don't typically get used a lot, but during COVID, they became more usable, and we found out that actually people liked it. They enjoyed being outdoors and having some part of their event in the exterior spaces. So this will not be a facade improvement project. This will be looking at the landscaped areas and how to actually make them more usable for activities. So Studio 111, if you not familiar with them, they have done design work for a lot of cities, including us. They were the design firm for our beautiful downtown streetscape, and they're also the design firm for our bus shelter renovations. So in the project that I'm looking at for Progress Plaza, Studio 111, their proposal would show this scope of work. So we're looking at those two large landscaped areas in red. Now this is Progress Plaza at Progress Park. So to your top of this slide would be Jefferson, and then to your left would be Downey Avenue. We are looking at these landscaped areas. So that big landscape area to the right next to the conference room, that, and again, so there might be, if you have an event using the conference room or boardroom now, you would be able to possibly use that outdoor space as an extension of that conference boardroom space. And then the auditorium, which already does have some outdoor space for it, we want to kind of grow and expand that and make it, again, more usable for outdoor activities. So those are the two broad areas in which Studio 111 will be looking at in terms of how we can reuse and repurpose that space. And now I'll turn it over to Planning Director John Carver.
Thank you, David. Madam Mayor and council members. So as John mentioned, as the COVID alfresco program has ended, we would also like to use Studio 111 to prepare plans for permanent outdoor dining areas at restaurants. Studio 111 would provide plans that would take into consideration both aesthetics and safety. Plans would include safety barriers, flooring, table and chair designs, and canopies or shade structures. Here are two examples of outdoor restaurant patio areas. In the picture on the right are concrete planters, which would act as, which in this case act as a safety barrier. Funding for the program would come from the ARPA funds under the city's category of business recovery, retention, and attraction. We're proposing $40,000 per project and are looking to do plans for 6 restaurants. As John said, the restaurants that are listed in the attachment, those are the ones that we've kind of done a preliminary evaluation on. We think they might work, but when we do a more in-depth evaluation, if they don't work, then we would be looking to do other restaurants. So the plans would be a full packet for construction, and they would include conceptual design, construction bid documents, structural engineering plans, and construction observation would also be included. Here are 2 restaurants that we think might work. The one on the left is Casa Adelita, and the one on the right is the Mariscos restaurant, just south of City Hall on Paramount Boulevard. Here's a look at the city's purchasing policy. Expenditures over $40,000 require city council approval. The conceptual plan for Progress Plaza will be presented to the city council for review, and the alfresco dining projects will require a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission and design approval from the Development Review Board. And with that, we're recommending approval of the agreement with Studio 111, and David and I can answer any questions.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Carver. Do my colleagues have any comments? May I have a
Great
motion
idea.
and a second to approve the professional design services agreement with Studio 111?
So move, Lemons.
May I have a second?
Second, Aguayo.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Aguayo,
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Yes. Okay. Mr. City Manager, may I have an oral report on the summer concert lineup and night under the Hay Tree Culture Performance events?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is an exciting one. Summer is upon us, and it's time for concerts in the park and night under the Hay Tree events. So here's our Community Services Director, Dave Johnson, to tell us about the lineup for the concerts and the cultural themes that we're looking at for the Hay Tree events. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. So here we go. So the summer concert series actually consists of 6 concerts. 4 of them will be at Progress Park and 2 will be at Friday Night Paramount as part of our summer program. There are Thursdays at the park, at Progress Park, and then Fridays at the Friday Night Paramount, both cases 6 to 8 p.m. So our concert series will run from July 1 through August 12th. At these events, obviously, we'll have food. We want to provide a various number of musical type of genres. And we obviously see this as these concerts are very positive community builders. You see the community come out, talk to your neighbors, and it's nice to have. So this is our band lineup, and I'll show you then a clip from each one of these. Just to note, the Heritage event, because it's on August 6th on a Saturday, we do not do the Friday Night Paramount the Friday prior to that, so it moves to August 12th. So the first one is, this is our kickoff to the summer concert series. It's also at the Friday Night Paramount. I think this band is going to be very exciting to watch, especially at the Friday Night Paramount event. And if we can show the clip. Stop it. Thank you. So obviously a pop band, Bruno Mars. It's a really good cover band for Bruno Mars. So that's going to be fun kickoff. Okay, we're going to do a little something different here. Our first concert on the park will be July 7th. This is a bluegrass band, Angel City Bluegrass. A little different. So again, we are always looking for introducing our community to different genres of music. So go ahead and play the clip. Everyone that comes to this concert better look at each other and say howdy. So this will be fun. Actually, Councilmember Isabella Aguayo, you might be familiar with this music from Knott's.
Absolutely, actually, and I really do enjoy it. Our first location at Knott's, they had us right next to a small stage where they actually had live performers. So, yes, I do enjoy it.
Excellent. The next one will be, again, at Progress Park. It's Spaghetti Cumbia. So can we go ahead and play that? And I'm watching Andrew over here. He's coming out because he was keeping rhythm with that music with his pen. You were doing the cowbell, weren't you? And then this is actually a group that we had at Friday Night Paramount last year. They were wonderful to watch. Again, typical classic rock, but it's a Fleetwood Mac cover band. So go ahead and play. Missed one. Got to have a mariachi, so we have Mariachi Las Catunias. They're an all-female mariachi band. We're an all-female council, so got to have an all-female mariachi band. Go ahead. Okay, then we head over to our last summer concert event, which would again go back to Friday Night Paramount. It is rhythm and blues. I kind of think more of it as doo-wop, but it's Vicky Tafoya and the Big Beat. They're going to be fun too, so go ahead. All right, so that is the lineup that we have for the concert series, the 6 concerts. Now, for Friday Night Paramount concerts, obviously we have the July 1, the August 12th. There is scheduled in for our budget for FY23 would be to do a concert in September and October at Friday Night Paramount. So I'd have 2 more concerts that we would have to plug in. So we've booked the bands, obviously, for the July and the August 12th event dates. What we're looking for Friday Night Paramount would be in September to do Motown, and then October 7th to do a classic rock cover band, maybe like a Journey or something of that nature. Whoops, going too fast. And then our Night Under the Hay Tree events, these are scheduled for August 25th and September 22nd. These are on a Thursday evening, 6 to 8 p.m. outside here, obviously under the hay tree. These are our cultural events. So last year we had scheduled a German group to come out. There was a problem them getting here, and so that one got canceled. So we're going to bring that one back. So we're going to do the German culture again. But this year, also the second one would be Japanese culture. So we would, like for the Japanese one, we would show the tea ceremony. We would have the Japanese drummers. We would have Japanese food. We can work with the Japanese castle in town to provide food. So we have opportunities here to again expose our community to some different cultures that are fun and exciting, and it'll be a good time. And that is our program.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for the report. Do my colleagues have any comments? I do. I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
I'm all excited so I can go out there and dance.
Oh, yes, we know you dance.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the environmental sustainability new business portion of the agenda. Mr. City Manager, may we have an oral report on the city's air monitoring program, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor. If you don't mind, I'd like to postpone this item. Our consultant has not arrived. The last word we hear, he was stuck in traffic, so he should be here any minute.
Chris is pointing at somebody.
Oh, he's coming in. Well, can we still do item 8? Give him a chance to kind of unwind before, after a traffic clog commute. So if you're okay with it, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move to item 8 and then come back to item 7. Is that okay?
Fine.
That okay? Okie doke. Moving over to item 8. So if we can move the slide, Anthony, that'd be great. Thank you. As part of the World Energy Refinery Conversion Project, the Environmental Impact Report called out several mitigation measures that World Energy must implement during construction. Many of these measures are very technical and detailed. With limited knowledge and staffing hours, we're recommending hiring a consultant instead to handle the monitoring of these requirements. And who better to handle this than the consulting firm who actually wrote the Environmental Impact Report? So with that, I'll turn it over to John Carver to tell you about the mitigation measures and who we would like to hire. Mr. Carver?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and council members. Yes, so this item is a request to approve a professional services agreement, a scope of work and billing rates for MRS Environmental. These services would be to monitor the implementation of mitigation measures for the subsequent environmental impact report for the Alt Air World Energy Refinery Conversion Project. At a special meeting on April 11th, 2022, the City Council approved the amended conditional use permit and certified the subsequent environmental impact report, allowing the conversion of the refinery from processing petroleum-based products to producing renewable fuels. The subsequent environmental impact report includes mitigation measures that need to be monitored. These mitigation measures include the development of a construction management plan, the use of newer trucks, a NOx reduction program, noise monitoring for construction and operations. Additional mitigation measures include development of a traffic mitigation plan for construction and operations, an air quality management plan for construction, air quality monitoring, and record keeping of fuel usage. MRS Environmental did prepare the subsequent environmental impact report and develop the mitigation measures. They have over 30 years of experience in preparing environmental documents and doing monitoring for gas and oil-related projects. The cost for MRS Environmental to do monitoring of the mitigation measures will not exceed $100,000 annually, and the city will be fully reimbursed by Alt Air World Energy for this cost. And we're recommending approval of the professional services agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. John, do any of my colleagues have any comments?
No, I was just going to ask, so you said World Energy will be covering the cost for this, and that's already been agreed upon?
That's
I'm
correct.
assuming since you're bringing, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? May I have a motion and a
So-
second to approve the professional service agreement?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second, Lemons.
Roll call, please, Heidi.
Councilmember Guillen,
Abstain.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Aguayo,
Yes.
Mayor Quer Stallings.
Yes. Now it's the time for council members' reports.
Actually, Madam Mayor, our consultant is here now.
Oh,
so
yes,
if we
that's
could
right.
go back up to item number
Back
7, that'd
to
be
item
great.
7.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're
for that
welcome,
reminder.
Madam Mayor, no problem. As you know, in September of 2021, the City Council awarded a contract for air monitoring to TNB Systems. The purpose of this contract was to continue the monitoring of hexavalent chromium emissions in our air that was formerly done by AQMD. TNB Systems has been doing this work for us now since November of 2021. So we're now at the 6-month mark, and we've asked our consultant to update the City Council on how things are looking since they started the monitoring program. So with us here today from TNB Systems is Dr. Kenneth Underwood, who will walk you through the presentation. Dr. Underwood? And can somebody hand him a remote?
Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, council members, I apologize for being late. I've been stuck on the freeway and all I've been seeing is the rear end of cars as I've been driving down here. So it's been a pleasure working on this project with Paramount City. We've enjoyed the interaction with the staff. We've enjoyed the interaction with the individuals or the areas in which we're doing the monitoring. My name's Kenneth Underwood. I am the program manager at TNB Systems, and but I'm not directly involved in this project. So I'm acting as kind of a surrogate presentation tonight, but I think I can do a pretty good job for it. Let's see, how do I do this? Just press it forward? Oh, no, that's it, okay. Yeah, there we go. So the overview on the project is that, let me go through this as the outline of what I'm going to present. So I'm going to present monitoring objectives, the network and operations, exactly how we do the operations for it, monitoring results and analysis, and then kind of fill it up with the sampler calibration and documentation. I gotta go back. Now what did I do? Let's see.
We can control the slides for you if you'd like, if you want to just say next or back.
Yeah, could you move it back and I'll just say next.
Okay.
That would be better because with
No problem.
With one button on here, I'm getting it wrong. Next, please. Okay, in November of 2021, the City of Paramount retained us to perform routine hexavalent chromium monitoring throughout the City of Paramount, okay? This monitoring had been performed by the South Coast AQMD, their research branch, and our objective or our plan was that we were going to take over the operations of the samplers. We were going to use the same equipment and use the procedures and that were established by the South Coast AQMD. So the monitoring objectives are the same. So it's to identify potential chromium or hexachromium sources in the community and to provide the results on the environmental portal, which we have done. We've done both of those. As a further comment, and I can just kind of see that, the South Coast AQMD has noted that hexavalent chromium concentrations above 1 nanogram per cubic meter over 3 consecutive days is of concern, and that readings below 1 nanogram per cubic meter are considered as background levels. Could you advance the slide, please? There are currently 5 hexavalent chromium monitoring locations in the city of Paramount. The network includes 2 types of samplers, the BGI PQ100, which are at 3 locations, and the BGI Omni at 2 locations. For logistics, the BGI PQ100s require AC power, whereas the BGI Omni samplers do not require AC power. They are DC powered, and we have now added solar power to it so that we do not have to charge the battery. We do not have to take them down and charge the battery on them. So the PQ100s are operated, one is here on in the roof of City Hall, and then 2 others are at the elementary school locations in the area. And then we operate the battery-powered BGI Omnis at 2 other locations. I'll talk about them later. Please advance. There you go. So the current I should have said this. The current monitoring locations are City Hall, the Matco Forge, Aerocraft, Wesley Gaines Elementary School, Lincoln Elementary School. And we had previously monitored from the 18th of December to the 2nd of February, or to the 22nd of February at Waterwell. Again, just to give you an idea, the PQ100s are operated at City Hall, Wesley Gaines Elementary School, Lincoln Elementary School, and the BGI Omnis are operated at Matco and Aerocraft. Please advance, please. Okay, this is a map that I can barely see. The locations, and this map is on our website. Did I do it again?
Oh, yeah, there's no point.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to use the laser on
Yeah,
that.
I'm not going to be able to use. Take it away from
But
me.
we can move the cursor if you want to.
No, that's okay. It was just pointing out the locations, and maybe with the cursor you could show the locations. So if you could show the City Hall, let's start off with City Hall, okay, and then with the Lincoln Elementary School, Gates Elementary School, the Matco Forge site, and the Aerocraft site. And then the Waterwell site, which is no longer in operation. So the Waterwell and the Matco site are close to each other. And they are generally west and northwest of City Hall, with one Lincoln Elementary School is toward the northeast. Please advance it. Okay, so the BGI samplers collect hexavalent chromium using 47 millimeter impregnated cellulose filters at known calibrated sampler flow rates. The flow rates are run every 1 and 6 days. We're down here every 6 days. Doesn't matter if there's a holiday or not, we're down here, and it takes about 6 hours for us to pull the filters from each one of the sampling locations. And each of the samplers are operated such that they draw air over a 24-hour period. So if there's not a sampling day, it's not drawing air. And if there's a sampling day, it will start at midnight and draw air at a constant flow rate until the next midnight. And then we pick up the filters after that. Once we get the filters, we put them in a refrigerated storage that we carry around with us, and then we ship them off to Chester Labs as quickly as we can. So the idea is you don't want to have the filters out for more than, more than a few days, because the hexavalent chromium could degrade into trivalent chromium. Okay. The filters then are analyzed using ion chromatography, and it's a standard way of analyzing it using the ASTM method indicated there. So, in addition to those samplers, we installed a weather station on the top of on the roof in this building, and we're constantly sampling data. Every 5 minutes, we get wind speed, wind direction, temperature, pressure, and relative humidity. And that data is also available on our website. Next slide, please. So here's a kind of a summary of the monitoring results from the 12th of November, 2021 until the 29th of April, 2021. And it shows the relative concentrations at the sites. There are 3 peaks that are, well, you can see that you can see the 1 nanogram per cubic meter. So the left-hand axis, the concentrations are in nanograms per cubic meter, and then the right axis is the date, and then the graph shows each one of the sites and their concentrations. So the first one that looks interesting there, that looks a little bit out of line, is the Waterwell Site. And we examined that site just because we happen to be by there. We're not doing any analysis. We're not doing any forensics or anything on it. We just happened by that site to pick up the sample. And there was construction in the area. We told Chester Labs, our analysis organization, and they said that in general, when you have construction, you're going to have elevated hexavalent chromium readings. So that came out of nowhere. They sent that back to us, and they said they do a lot of analysis on construction areas on the east and west coast, and this is one of the observations they've had. The other observations are what they are. We have tested. One of the things we do is that we put out what we call a blank sample, and we make it so that on a sequential basis, the samplers are turned off. They don't sample during that sampling period. The idea with that is to see if there's any residual hexavalent chromium that could accumulate on the filters. And in all cases, the samples, when we've done the blanks, have been less than or non-detectable. So it's been less than the detection level of the gas chromatograph system. That's one of the things we do to test it. We also do calibration of the flow rates, and we do cleaning of the sample inlets and that with every time we visit the site. Please advance. So I should say this is more results than particular analysis, but you can see from here that the average across the entire city is somewhere between 0.1 nanogram per cubic meter up to maybe 0.4, maybe 0.5 nanograms per cubic meter. On an average, that is below what was identified as South Coast as something that should be of concern. So that's basically what we've presented there is just a simple minimum. The minimum during the sampling period, the sampling period being the 18th of November through the 29th of April, and then the maximum, and then the average associated with it, with the sample number that's there. And I should comment that when the transition between South Coast and TMB systems, we're not a government organization, so we could not place the samplers back on the SCE telephone poles, for example. So we asked the city, we worked with John and that's the city, and they put in poles, their own poles for the samplers themselves. We also had to go through a process to get access to the schools too, and so that took a while, and it took some effort again with John with us to get to complete that process. So you might ask, okay, what's the meteorological conditions here? So this is a windrose. A windrose gives you the wind direction. In meteorology, the wind direction specified as the direction from which the wind's blowing. So the roses, the data there is plotted. It shows most of the time the wind is coming from the west. So most of the time you have what's called a sea breeze here. And then at times, and probably at night, is when you have the winds from the northerly direction. You can see the wind speeds are pretty low. That gray area, I think, is 5 to 10 meters per second, and the yellow area is 2.5 to 5 not meters per second, but miles per hour. Each one of those radii that's indicated there is 2.5 miles per hour. And it really, this is great information, but we got to remember, we're sampling over a 24-hour period. So we can measure our 5-minute, and we have some of this data on the website where you can look at the 5-minute, you can look at a windrose over a 24-hour period, but you don't know exactly where the source is from it, okay? So this is not diagnostic from that viewpoint. It is just a measure of how the winds vary here. Next, yeah, there you go. And this is the direction frequency. So the x-axis in this case is a wind sectors, and the y-axis is a frequency of measurements from that. And again, what this supports is that the wind is generally from either the north or the west area there, the west direction. Again, sea breeze during the day, land breeze at night. Next slide, and this is the wind speed frequency. So that is the number of times the wind is in let's say start from left to right, 0 to 1 mile per hour, then the next one's 1 to 2, next one's 2 to 3, and so on and so forth. So in general, the winds are pretty light around here too. You're not getting 20 and 30 mile an hour winds, at least not since we've started monitoring. We would see those types of events here. Please go ahead. So can I get, let me get a water. Just a second. My mouth is getting dry. Excuse me. Thank you. So anytime you have monitoring, anytime you're doing anything, you need to have quality control, quality assurance of the data. So our quality assurance is how the sample is taken. And so the quality assurance is kind of outlined here. In the second bullet, it says, during each site, TMB Systems personnel conducts instrument verification checks, calibrations on each of the BGI samplers, and BGI is generic for all of the samplers, using National Institute of Standards certified flow rate meter and temperature and barometric pressure calibration. So we have all that instrumentation, we bring it down here, and at each time we make sure the samplers that are adjusted or that are performing within their requirements. We fill out those forms during each visit, documenting any out of tolerance values and corrective action that was taken. So if we have to adjust flow rate, for example, we know we had to adjust it. We measured it. We can measure it very accurately, and so we can adjust it. Then our lab is a high quality lab. It's up in Portland, Oregon. We've used them for years. Many environmental organizations use them. They require a chain of custody. So we take the chain of custody from the time we receive the filter from them, what we do with it, we place it in the freezer. When we pull it out, when we take it down to bring it down here, when we install it, and then when we pick it up, and then when we mail it back to them. So as an example, if we come on a Friday, we don't mail it to them right away because they're not open on Friday. So we'll hold it till Monday in our freezer and then mail it out Monday, and we have the results by Tuesday from them at that point. And Chester Lab requires that we give them all of this data, the 24-hour total sample volume, the average temperature, barometric pressure, and the elapsed time that the sampler was running. Next slide, please. So, I was actually invited Randy to come down here, but we keep the equipment clean. We're very meticulous in making sure that the sample inlets are cleaned on a monthly basis. I've mentioned the QC blanks that we put out periodically, and we rotate this throughout the network, and that will let us know if any of the samplers are having a problem, because we would get a biased result at that point. If we don't get a non-detect, we know we've got a problem there. And the samplers, as it says in the third bullet there, will undergo calibration adjustment if the equipment's flow rate, temperature, or barometric pressure sensors are found to be outside the operational criteria. And we follow the operational criteria as specified by the manufacturer, BGI, okay? Next slide, please. This is a list of the calibration criteria. Flow rate, plus or minus 4% of the target flow rate. We operate at two flow rates. One of them is a lower flow rate than the other, but it is within the specification of the ASTM method I mentioned. And then we look at, and if we have to, we will invalidate the filters for various reasons. So one of them would be the sampler operation is outside of the calibration criteria. Power outages, we only have to worry in that usually at the AC sites if that occurs. We have no backup. We have backup power at that site. And then rain can affect the filter, or the filter can be damaged or torn for some reason, whatever might cause that. Next slide, please. So this is just to show you how we ship the filter, how we receive it. We receive it in a box just as it's shown there, and that's how it goes back out to the lab for their analysis. Again, we keep meticulous sheets, chain of custody sheets. We are used to doing that. That's required in our business and something that we always do. Next slide, please. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this helps you in understanding the operations and how we're doing it, and I'm open to questions if you have
Thank
any.
you for the report, sir. Do my colleagues have any comments?
I have a question.
I do too. You go ahead, Councilmember.
I heard you say that you come out every sixth day or so and you remove the filter. Once you remove that filter, are you replacing a new filter at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then my other question is, you talked about some of the malfunctions that could occur that would prevent you from having a reading. In the data that you have from November until, I think it was what, May?
Well, yeah, it was, a couple days ago?
How
4 or
many
5 days?
malfunctions have you had?
I don't think we've had any. we would report them. So in that table, I wish I would have put up a copy of that table, but I didn't, right? So in that table, we indicate if there's a reason that a measurement wasn't validated or wasn't reported, we will indicate it as a problem in below that table. And
So the rain that we've had didn't affect it,
did not affect.
or any of the winds that we've had recently didn't affect it? Okay, thank you.
I think my question is more for staff, though, Mr. Underwood, but thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
Staff, can you take the slide back to the results, please? I know we always talk about that we're not scientists, but I'm curious on something, so because I know how to read a bar graph, so I'm just curious on this one, you guys. For the Aerocraft, there's like some up and downs right there. So have we talked to Aerocraft to figure out what's going on there, or?
No, we have not talked to Aerocraft. We have, each time that we've had a reading over 1 nanogram, I do contact the AQMD.
Okay.
Again, their guidelines are 3 consecutive readings over 1 nanogram is an issue. There have not been 3 consecutive readings over 1 nanogram.
I can add a little bit to that,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Sure.
So we have taken blanks at Aerocraft, and they're blanks.
I'm
So-
sorry, you have taken blanks?
Blanks. So when I mentioned where we rotate through the network,
Huh.
and we will put a filter in, but we won't draw anything through it.
Got it.
And then we take that filter and send it to the lab, handling it the same way, to see if there's any residual fallout or whatever that might be on that in terms of hexavalent chrome or anything else.
Mhm.
And we've not observed anything at Aerocraft when we do the blank. We've not observed anything at any of the other sites. Now, that doesn't mean we're sampling the atmosphere. It just means that to me, it means that the equipment's working properly in terms of what it's supposed to do.
Okay. And just for educational purposes, is there a difference? You said you have the Omni at 2 sites and the PQ at 3 other sites.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why? I mean, do Omnis go here and PQs go there? Is there like a reason for that?
Well, that was the equipment that was given to us.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and so the PQ 100s were used by South Coast at
Okay.
mounting on the telephone poles, or the Omnis were used by South Coast, and the PQ 100s were used at the schools.
Got it.
And there was one other site I think they had it at.
So we already had them up. They were up. That's okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you.
So if you go back, for example, if you go back to the time when South Coast was monitoring, those sites should be the same, not exactly in position, but they should be in the same local area.
Got it. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. You had a question?
Yeah.
Oh,
Excuse
sir?
me.
Ken.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to walk away.
No, that's okay, that's okay. I just need, I have a few questions, but I need a little more explanation on the blanks. So are what you're saying is that you don't draw air through those? So if they're just sitting there stagnant and there's residual hexavalent chromium, then the filter would catch it? Is that what you mean by that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do I understand that correctly?
So if our handling, our techniques, if the gloves that are used when we're handling the filters, if anything had residual hexavalent chrome on there, we would know that. I mean, we're sensing down to the nanogram per cubic meter, so that's pretty low.
Okay. And then that brings me back to Councilmember Olmos's question. So you said at Aerocraft, the blanks are blank, but you know, and I know how AQMD monitors on the rolling, but I mean, we have a 2 and we have like a 1 and almost a 1.5 and just under. So I would just like, even though I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but even though the AQMD doesn't see it as an issue because this is one company and they're still, pretty regularly violating the one, couldn't we go have a conversation and maybe get the AQMD expert or a consultant out there to see what's going in this particular business that this is happening? Or is there a possibility that because of the direction of the wind, it's not all Aerocraft, or is this to them because it's right in front of their business?
Sure, we can definitely have that conversation and try and establish a meeting with AQMD and Aerocraft for that, for certain.
Yeah, I think we should see what's going on there.
Sure.
Let's try to get them in line with everybody else and back below that one, and let's find out what's going on.
Absolutely, and that's the whole purpose of embarking on this, taking over the the air monitoring from the AQMD, is to see if we do have problems like that. Let's go and investigate.
Let's talk.
Sure.
Maybe
Mhm.
some expertise can help figure that out.
You got it.
Also, you had mentioned that the monitor draws air through 24 hours a day. Do you
When it's sampling,
pardon me?
only when it's sampling.
Yeah, when it's sampling.
Yep.
Is that a combination of weekdays and weekends, or just one or the other?
We are in every 6-day rotation. So sometimes we hit weekends,
Okay,
and sometimes we don't.
that's what I wanted to know. So we
Yeah.
are catching all of the
Yeah,
possibilities.
so we're catching all the possibilities.
And is there any one of these filters that would pick up any type of issue from Anaplex, which for a long time was our long-time violator? Would any of these be picking that up?
It depends on how close the monitor, I'm assuming, how close the monitor is located to Anaplex. All we were told back when we were going through the hexavalent chromium issues that the chrome elements don't really travel too far. That's what AQMD had told us. I believe it was after 100 feet or so they start to dissipate or they come down on the ground. I'm not sure if that's still the case after the research, but so it's just really dependent on where this particular monitor is located, how far from Anaplex. So that's definitely something that we could ask
Which kind of
AQMD.
leads into my next question, which is, what is the plan for how often we're going to move locations? Do we have one yet?
We have not been asked to develop one yet, and
I think we should look at that
Look
for
at
that
that.
reason.
Mhm.
Like,
Things are
right
moving.
now, would we have anything in place that
Sure.
would monitor something at Anaplex? It sounds like no.
Yeah, we don't at this point. We're taking our lead directly from AQMD. So
But
you know,
they're
for
not
6 months.
monitoring
No.
anymore,
But if we, this was the plan that they approved, but we could go back to them and say, would you recommend moving them in different locations, and if so, where, based on the intense research that they did of our city, way back when. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
we
think
can do that.
after we have a few months, I'm not saying right this minute, but some
Sure.
data that's like this is consistently clean and in a good place or at real low rates, then let's move them around where we might pick up something or somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I just, like I said, I'd like to be on top of Anaplex because my memory is that situation went on the longest.
It did.
And so I would rather that we be on top of that. And then you had mentioned, I think it was the water well, and that's when the construction was taking place. Is that
Yes,
the one?
yes, ma'am.
And was that water well construction?
Yes.
Yes.
yeah,
Not
we'd
construction
we'd
around it.
reported. Yeah, it was
It was the
around
water well.
Around it, yes.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you,
If,
Madam
if,
Mayor.
if I may make a comment, okay, so if you want to move them, generally what would happen, the process would be that we would develop a plan for you. It's called a Quality Assurance Project Plan, stating exactly what would be done. And we would then submit that to the AQMD, which would approve it. So that gets all of your, it checks all your boxes there of what you want to do. And that way the plan can be developed with the AQMD's input on it and with your input on where you would like to see the monitors. You might consider maybe even purchasing a couple more monitors that are mobile, the Omni type, that are mobile, that are battery powered. We can charge the batteries with solar, so the batteries will run it probably for one sample period and then maybe start it for the next sample period, but you really need to have something charging the battery in between. So
Right,
that's
and
why
that's
we added
actually
it.
something we have discussed and we're definitely considering, but I think we wanted to see how the pilot program goes
Sure.
and try to work out the bugs so that we do this in the most, financially, fiscally responsible way and
absolutely.
the best way to get the readings for the community
Yeah,
that makes sense.
absolutely. And so that could be
I
part
don't
of the
think we
plan
should
too.
stay stagnant in one place. If the readings stay good for months and months and months, then let's make sure that we're checking all of the areas that, that we have industry and that could be an issue.
So the ones that we can move are the Omni ones.
Right, I understand.
The others we could move, but you need to have
There's more.
a level place for it, and you need to have AC power, and it's got to be, of course, protected.
Yeah, those are the hardwired ones.
Yeah.
And I do love all the safeguards that you talked about in place. I love the chain of custody. I love the blanks, all those things. Those are really good things. So I'm really, pleased with your report and how thorough it was. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I follow up based on what came up in conversation here? When the 1 nanogram stipulation was in order on 3 consecutive days, giving an average, that's what they were doing. But now you're checking them every 6 days. So if you look at the graph and we're monitoring every 6 days or removing the filter, testing after 6 days, how are we're now averaging instead of every 3 days of an average, we're monitoring for every 6 days. So that would mean that these statistics here where you have 2/4, February 4th, February 10th, that's actually a 12-day period. So if you had a 12-day period, what the stipulated order that we used to be under was an average on 3 days. So then we would have an issue here. So how are we addressing that issue now?
Well, first off, I thought it was based on the every 6-day sampling.
That's what I
No,
Because
it used to
was
be every
based on
3
Every
days.
3 days, okay. So we don't know.
So we need to get with
We would need-
AQMD
we
and
would
address
need to
that
figure
issue.
that out, yeah.
So
Councilmember,
then,
go
go ahead.
We would have to do testing every 3 days, which is what AQMD was doing. If you're looking to how they did it.
So, but no, I understand how they did it, but how we're doing it now is every 6 days.
Right,
And it
right.
became an issue when it was an average over 3 days.
Right.
And clearly we have 2 readings of 6 days each, which is 12 days of over the 1 nanogram. So that's why I'm saying this is an issue here. Because now we can't use that 3 testing, that same 3 testing period, because we would be talking about 18 days versus 3 days. So
Right.
if you're talking 12 days of over, the 1 nanogram, it's an issue. So we need to see how we're going to address that with AQMD.
Again, what they've told me is that 3 consecutive readings, even though it's every 6 days in a row, would cause concern with them. So that's what they have told me.
So now it's every 18 days then, as opposed to 3 days, because 3
Right.
readings of this is 18 days.
Right.
But I think it was every 3 readings, not 3 days. It was every
That's correct.
It was an
And they-
average
they
of
test-
3
they-
readings.
They tested
readings.
every 3 days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at
but
that
they were
point
doing
did.
it, they were monitoring more often than every 6 days.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. But they never said every 3 days. Even though they were monitoring every 3 days, they said every 3 samples.
would be the
Um,
average.
And the
But I think they were
6-day
3-day samples.
They were. No, yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, they were.
So that would have been
the
9.
The 6-day sample period that they recommended to us was generated by the EPA. So that's their EPA standard. So they said use the every 6-day period, and if there are three samples over that period of time that you're sampling, that's
Okay.
cause for concern.
So then my next follow-up question is on the Omni 100s and the PQ 100s, or the Omni and PQ 100s, what happened to the monitors that we had already purchased? Are those the monitors?
Yeah,
These are our 5 monitors.
Those are the monitors that we purchased. Okay, so when you said AQMD provided, there actually are monitors
Right.
that they gave back to you. Okay,
So they had pulled them down,
right.
pulled them off, and they'd taken them back to AQMD. We picked them up, and while we were there, we were trained on how they did everything. And then we brought them back to our facility, and then we put them out in the field as soon as we could.
Okay, just wanted to make sure where ours were being utilized somewhere in there.
And at that time, my understanding is that the AQMD was doing once every 6 days, which is EPA protocol.
Toward the end,
Toward the end,
that's
this
correct.
is toward the
right.
end, right. Not
But not
at
when we
the
were
beginning,
under a
not-
stipulated order. It
Right.
was different when we were under a court mandated stipulated order.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I think we're on the same page in that regardless if it's the 3 days, the 6 days, the 12 days, whatever, soon as we notice an issue, which to me this proves that, the monitors are doing their job, even though it doesn't fall within maybe AQMD's guidelines of now we have to step in, we have a situation here
Sure.
that we at least need to address.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think that we have to stick to AQMD's guidelines of what's a problem to take a step in and say, we've noticed these readings. We'd like you to have somebody, come in and look at it and see what you guys could do better, because we don't want to see this. We want you in line with everybody else.
You're absolutely
It doesn't have
correct
to
with
be the AQMD stepping in and citing. We can still say we see something we're not happy with.
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
I have one question, sir. You said that you replace the filters as soon as you remove the other ones. You replace.
We
You put
clean it.
another new foot.
We clean it. We clean the filter holder and then put the next
Okay.
one in.
Okay, you just wanted clarification on that. So that's like every 6 days.
So what that does is that prepares it for the next 6-day period. And then we put the timer on the time for it to do the sampling the next 6-day period.
Okay. Okay.
And then one of the things we check is to make sure the timer is working properly too.
Yes.
Because if it's sampling on a different day, that doesn't help in a lot of ways. Or it doesn't help at all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. Okay, we'll continue. Okay. Now we'll go on to, now is the time for council members' reports. May I have a report, council member Olmos?
Want me to go first? Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to say thank you to the community, the businesses, staff, Parks and Rec. Thanks you guys for making our ribbon cutting today for the Paramount Historical Society such a success. I think it was a success. We had a lot of people show up. So again, thank you for everybody for attending today. I do have 2 items that I'd like to bring before my colleagues for discussion, for maybe staff to do some research on. So the first item I'd like to talk about is our conferences. Right now we attend contract cities, we attend JPIA if possible. League has conferences, as also SCAG has conferences. So I'd like to have discussion with my colleagues to see if you guys would be open to having staff look into possibly, like, instead of one of us attending, that possibly, if we're free to go, that maybe all of us can attend for these educational classes. So I'd like to get some feedback from you guys on that, so staff can look into see what the cost would be for that, for us to go, if there's any discussion or.
Yes, that sounds like a great idea.
Can I
I'm
actually?
in favor of it.
May I go ahead and add to that, actually? I was at SCAG, and they had 2 different sessions going on at the same time, so it would definitely be beneficial for there to be at least one other person representing Paramount, if not, entire council who's available. Because, yeah, I came to a choice. I was like, because they were both good topics. One of them was, of course, housing, and the other one was broadband, and not necessarily the infrastructure, but just how our residents would actually pay once this is. So, they were both really great topics, and having to make that decision was kind of tough. So I definitely see the benefits in that. So, yes.
All right. Madam Mayor?
Yes, of course.
So if you're looking for consensus, I would just say you're never going to find me in opposition to council members wanting to educate themselves to serve the community.
Right.
So I'm perfectly okay with it.
Thank you. So staff. can
Okay,
we go?
so it sounds like there is a consensus for us to bring back a report to you. It's very timely, obviously, with the budget presentation and the budget adoption happening next month. So we'll include that as part of the budget presentation, showing the cost for the different conferences and opening it up to as many as maybe like 3 to 4 council members, just so we have enough in the budget to do that.
Well, 3 to 4, what do you mean by that? Because, contract cities, like 4 of
3
us
to
go.
4 per conference, would that work? 3 to 4 council members attending.
I think what we're saying is we want all 5.
All
An
5?
option.
The
as an
option to
option.
it, but you might only get 3 or
Yeah,
4.
exactly.
You
Got
might
it.
only get 1.
Yeah.
But
True.
Everybody wants the option
And to
that
go.
if there's an education there
Got
to
it.
be had,
So
like,
all
they
5.
want to take
Right.
advantage of it.
Okay, all 5 then. All right, great.
The next item, colleagues, that I'd like to consider is I'm looking to see if we are able to do a policy change on our current scholarship program. Right now, we have it just money allocated to the sports. In the near future, we're going to be having some art, music that's going to be coming our way, and sometimes the cost to join these classes may be expensive. So I'm looking to see if we're able to allocate or do a new allocation specific to the arts music program. See what you guys thought about that maybe staff can go back and, again, do some research on that or figure out how we can do allocations. I'm looking at Dave and John because Not sure how that works, but again, I just wanted to see if there was a consensus on council for that.
Madam Mayor, I'm not opposed to staff bringing back a report about
Sure.
what programs we're talking about and, the effect on the budget. I'm all in favor of, when our residents can't afford something, that we provide those opportunities. So yes, I'm in favor of a report.
Okay, I see a few heads nodding, so, okay, great. Looks like there's
I'm in
consensus.
favor also.
Okay. Great, we will bring that report back to you, and again, very timely because of the budget presentation coming up next month. So we'll include that as part of the expansion of the scholarship program.
Perfect. Thanks to you guys. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Gillen, please.
I really don't have too much. I'll start giving some closing arguments and speeches next month, as it'll be my last month on council. So, but for tonight, I just want to wish everybody a happy, or I guess take the time to remember that it's Memorial Day, where we honor those men and women who sacrificed for our country. So I hope everybody has a nice 3-day weekend.
Okay, Councilmember Peggy Lemons.
Thank you. So I would like to say I attended the ribbon cutting today of the Historical Society, and I think this is a wonderful organization for our city. It was a beautiful ribbon cutting. You guys all did a tremendous job. I know for a long time it's been talked about, so that you guys took action and put it together. I couldn't be happier. I would encourage, every resident out there, you're going to be part of Paramount's history. Look at joining the organization. The fee is nominal. In addition to that, I know that, for some time now, we have been collecting historical pieces in the hope that we will have a city museum one day. So if you have a little piece of history, make sure that you get it, down here to City Hall, get your name attached to it, so that, when we're ready to open this museum, which I believe is going to happen, one way or the other, that we'll have enough to fill it up. So thank you guys for doing that. You did an amazing job. I think it's a wonderful organization, and I think you've got a lot of work ahead of you to preserve Paramount's history. I also attended the Contract Cities Conference, and we had some really good speakers. We were able to learn about all of the changes that are coming forth in water regulations and infrastructure and the demand for water, and it was very technical, and there was a lot to absorb, but definitely an education for all of us. We were also able to hear from a young man whose life story was based on the movie Braven, if you've seen that. And so he was very inspirational in his presentation about perseverance, and regardless of what the odds are. So we thank him for that, and giving us all the positive attitude that he had to continue on and persevere in our cities to do the best for our residents. And Saturday is the Women's Empowerment Tea put on by the Chamber of Commerce, I believe, correct? So if you're out there and would like to join us, we'll be at that Women's Tea, and I believe they're going to have speakers and some entertainment and some display booths, if I read the flyer correctly. And I think that's at Progress Park?
Yes.
Yes. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. Vice Mayor Aguayo, please.
So I have a lot of the same things that my colleagues did. Of course, congratulations to the Paramount Historical Society on a great ribbon cutting. It was really nice to see so many people out there today, and it has been a long time coming. I share a wall with Mike McCown, so I've heard about it a lot. So, and we've talked about it. We talked about it for years. So it was really great to see it just come to be, and I'm excited to see what just that organization does for our city. The other thing I had, actually had the SCAG conference on here, and I said again, I do have here that there was a lot of information. It would have been great if somebody else had been there to go to some of the other sessions. And then there was some information specifically on broadband that I actually already shared with our city manager to start researching some of that for our residents. I was at Contract Cities with our colleagues again, and the keynote speaker, I mean, it really, really was. He just had such an amazing story. And his thing, you know, again, finding our why. Why do we do this? Why are we doing it? Finding that why. And hanging on to it to, you know, I mean, persevere through some of those tough times. So again, it was really great. You know, we had, of course, our housing session, and I also wrote down the water and infrastructure, and I put that it was lots and lots of technical information, and it was great information. Personally, I think, you know, I mean, Adriana hasn't, you know, stepped out, but I mean, she would be just a superstar keynote speaker on something like that because she is the water expert, and she makes it so easy. So that was that. And other than that, I'm definitely looking forward to our summer lineup. So that's all I have. Good night.
Thank you. Well, also attended the Historical Society grand opening, and I want to thank our council member, Brenda Olmos, and also Becca Gillen for collaborating together, and there's several of us from the community, including myself, that are in the executive board. I was appointed by former Mayor Olmos to be on the committee, and what an honor. But it was an honor to see so many residents and even friends and relatives at this event. And again, congratulations, Becca and Councilmember Brenda Olmos for putting this together. To me, it means a lot, especially growing up here in Paramount since I was 6 years old. It means a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the new history book is going to look like. And I also attended the Contract Cities. Yes, I think Adriana Figueroa would be a great candidate to speak in favor of the water situations that we have in the state of California. She's very knowledgeable, as Vice Mayor Aguayo mentioned. I also I'm planning to attend the Women's Empowerment Tea on Saturday. I hope to see quite a few residents and women, and even young women at the age of 16 and up. I'm planning to take my granddaughter, and she's looking forward to it. She was actually asked to attend a couple weeks ago. We had another women's empowerment, and it was very successful. And I'm looking forward to her getting a little bit more knowledge about what women do on this, even in this community, and what we're planning to do in the future. And also want to invite everybody to the Memorial Day celebration that we have. It's usually run by the Elks Club. It's on May 30th. I think it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's right here at our Civic Center, correct, John? Memorial Center, excuse me. And I would like to see quite a few. I'm sure my husband, and I'm hoping that my brother, who's also a Vietnam veteran, will come. My dad was a World War II veteran, and I mentioned that before. He always enjoyed coming and participating and listening. And anyway, just want to wish everyone a nice evening, a nice weekend. It seems like our weather's getting a little cooler, which I really enjoy. And I think my flowers like it. They don't like the hot weather. But anyway, but thank you. Everyone have a great night. Now I'll go on to the city manager for any comments from staff.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a couple. First off, street racing, always a big topic. I pretty much bring you guys up to speed on this, how things are going with that. You may recall that we did send a letter to Speaker Rendon from the mayors in his district requesting additional funding for the California Highway Patrol for enforcement purposes. And we've also sent a copy of that letter to Senator Lena Gonzalez's office as well, showing that there's a strong outcry for help here in the region for street racing. I was notified last week that 2 assembly members are requesting that in the state budget, $5.5 million be placed in the budget for enforcement and be given to California Highway Patrol for enforcement, for task force of that nature. So hopefully our letter, our loud voice through Contract Cities, as Mayor almost knows, she did press conference at the steps of the Capitol a couple of months ago. Seems like all of our efforts and this attention being generated toward this important topic is paying off. So keep your fingers crossed that the 5.5 million, it'll help. It'll definitely help. Anything will help in that area. So I also just have an introduction of a new staff member. As we know, Mr. Andres Gonzalez was promoted from community services specialist to recreation supervisor. That happened a couple of months ago. So we did a recruitment, and we have a person to fill Andres' old position, and she's sitting right here at the front. Why don't you go ahead and stand up? Her name is Michelle Razzo, and she's our newest full-time hire in the position of community services specialist. Michelle was born and raised in Paramount and continues to live here in town. After attending Paramount High School, she attended and graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. She's worked for us for actually 7 years in our STAR program. Most recently, she was a coordinating supervisor at Moakler School. And prior to us hiring her as a full-time staff member, she was also a long-term substitute teacher at POSD. She loves to travel and has been as far away as Australia. And she has 2 dogs, and she loves to cook. So we are expecting some good food from her on the staff level. So with that, we'd like to welcome Michelle Raza to our team.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
And that's it. That's it, Madam Mayor.
And I have one last thing I forgot to mention. Today I received a call from Congresswoman Robo Aldrich's office from Washington, D.C. I was informed that the city of Paramount would be receiving $2 million for a project at Spanning Park. And she, through her chief of staff, she wanted to speak to me, but she had to rush to a meeting. But I was informed that she sees great things happening in Paramount, and she was more than happy to help us out in any way she could. And this means a lot to our city parks, and this is going to help us tremendously. So thank you, Congresswoman Robo. Thank you very much. In behalf of our staff and our council women and our city residents, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for everything. And that's it. And now we'll have our next meeting. Let me go back. Sorry. I had a little note. Now we will adjourn this meeting to Wednesday, June 8th at 6 o'clock. Please note that our meeting is being moved to Wednesday instead of Tuesday because June 7th is the election. Good night, everyone.